Before we begin today's episode, I want to take a moment to set the tone for this conversation. What you're about to hear is a deeply complex and tragic story, one that sits at the intersection of brain injury, mental health, and violence. We will be discussing real events involving loss of life, behavioral changes, and suicide. This episode is not meant to sensationalize harm, but to explore understanding, particularly the role of the brain, cognition, and the systems that surround athletes both during and after their careers. As always, we approach this conversation with care for the victims, for their families, and for the individual at the center of the story. Please take care of yourself as you listen, and if at any point you need to pause, step away, or revisit this conversation later, that is completely okay. Today, we are analyzing this case through a clinical and neurological lens, not to excuse behavior, but to understand brain-behavior relationships. I am joined by some very special guests today. I would like to introduce to you some of the graduating students in my lab. And I'm going to let each of you tell everyone, you can tell them your name and what year you are in the program.
Hi, my name is Dr. Rose Langdon. I'm in my second year.
I'm Victoria. I'm in the 5-year accelerated program.
And I am Tiffany White. I'm a second year student.
Hey, thank y'all for joining. Thank you for doing something that you didn't have to do, right? So today we are going to be expanding the story on a previous episode that you've heard. So if you watch the episode that came before this, you will see that another group of students talked about Black athletes, CTE, and suicide. One of those individuals that we talked about, we didn't get in deep into the story, but we wanted to take time in this episode to dig a little deeper into the life of Phillip Adams and the events surrounding finding out that he was diagnosed with CTE. And so the students are going to help walk us through this story. And then we're also going to do some analyzing and explaining of it from the perspective of the speech language pathologist. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started.
So Phillip Adams was a talented quarterback out of South Carolina State. He was from Rock Hill, South Carolina, which is also known as the Football City, USA, where football is not just a sport, it's an identity, an opportunity, and in many ways, survival. So in 2010, Phillip Adams was drafted to the NFL. He went to the San Francisco 49ers in the 7th round. And although he wasn't a headline pick, it was still the accomplishment of a dream. So within his NFL career, he played 78 games. And over the 6 seasons, he played for 6 different NFL teams. So in his rookie year, he experienced a broken ankle during week 16 that penetrated through this. It was like a bone break that penetrated through the skin. So he had to get screws in his leg, and he was never able to play for the 49ers again. Then in 2011, he was signed by the New England Patriots. He was waived, which basically means that they kind of put him up to be picked up by another team for 24 hours. They re-signed him, released him, re-signed him again, and then he had 1 interception during the season, and then they ended up waiving him again at the end. So after that, he was signed to the Seattle Seahawks in December, and he had 1 appearance, and they cut him at the end of the preseason. And from 2012 to 2013, he was with the Oakland Raiders. He played 15 games, and he had an interception off of Peyton Manning, but he sustained 2 concussions in 3 games. In 2014, he was with the New York Jets, where he played 12 games. He had 24 tackles, and he had 1 interception, but he was still fighting for his spot as he was released that following year. So for his last team, he played with the Atlanta Falcons in 2015. He played 13 games. He had 38 tackles. His contract did expire, and his career was over at 27. So after his transition from the NFL, he started to notice that things with himself were not Right. Okay, I think I'm going to stop here. Or should I keep going?
No, I think you're jumping into Rose's section.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Yeah.
We'll come back up.
So let's sit there for just a moment. Just hearing that part of his story, how does it make you feel, or what does it make you? What comes to mind for you when thinking about what he went through just in the NFL?
I get
Disappointment. He was disappointed most of the times. I mean, he wanted to achieve a certain level, but couldn't. And
Mm-hmm.
every time he was signed up for something, he was disappointed. So it's like it's going to affect him mentally.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Victoria.
it fosters the feelings of being disposable, right? Working so hard for something since you were a child, you finally get there, and it's like they don't really care to, keep you or to see you grow. So imagine your first year playing, you get an injury, a career, not a career ending, but a season ending injury, and they don't even give you another chance. And you keep getting bounced. You never get that second chance.
And that's a tough feeling for anyone, right? To somebody say, we want you, and then they're like, nah, we really don't. We want you. No, we really don't. And no, we're gonna put you up. We're gonna sign you again. But no, we're not really gonna take you. And so just that alone can put a person into a very dark space.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think about how stressful that must have been for him. Like, he must have been in a constant state of stress, not knowing if
Mhm.
the present day was the last day he was going to play for that team, or if he was going to have another team to play for in the next month,
Mhm.
years,
Yeah. Yeah. And then think about how big that is too, because it's the NFL. Not everybody gets an opportunity to go, right? It's only the top elite ones that actually get to go and even just try out, right? And so to have that happen, there also might be like feelings of embarrassment, feeling like you let people down. You don't know if he felt like he had people dependent on him, all those kind of things. Okay, so kind of thinking about what he was feeling and all those, let's get into the next part. We'll let Rose tell us about what he was going through.
Yeah, so after football, things begin to change for Philip. People who knew Philip described him as quiet, disciplined, and even gentle. But over time, those descriptions started to shift. His family members began to notice that his mental health was degrading fast and was becoming terribly bad. His temper escalated. His behavior became unpredictable. He struggled with memory. Simple tasks like organizing, traveling, or following through with appointments became overwhelming for him. Also, he had difficulty sleeping. He was in constant pain, physical pain from years of injury, and neighbors also noticed him pacing or wandering about and was no longer approachable like he used to be. He also displayed signs of isolation, of depression, of disconnection. So his agent once even said he felt he was lost without football, and noticed some form of depression as well. Medically, we now understand more about what may have been happening beneath the surface. And after his death, an autopsy revealed that Philip had stage 2 chronic traumatic encephalopathy, but not just a typical stage 2. He was described as unusually severe, particularly in the frontal lobes where the lesions were found. And the frontal lobe, we know, it plays a role in impulse control, decision making, emotional regulation, and behavior. So that is where his problem stemmed from. Researchers also noticed symptoms associated with this stage: aggression, impulsivity, memory loss, paranoia, depression, poor executive functioning. And these were the symptoms that Philip was displaying. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it wasn't something that just happened right away, right? We know that CTE is a progressive disease. It's neurodegenerative, right? There's no reversing of it. It is a form of dementia, a very severe form, because it is related to repeated head injuries. And so it's different than when we talk about Alzheimer's, where these plaques and tangles do develop, but they develop because the neurons have been impacted. They've been twisting and tearing and dying, but the impacts keep happening over and over and over, and it releases something, right? And so when they talk about this, and I won't go too far because y'all are going to share some more information about this later. But when we talk about all these, you know, what happened to him, right? So he went through all these things, but he also, they didn't talk a lot about concussions happening, but we know if he was in the NFL, we know that concussions are happening over time. And then we don't know how long he's been playing.
Yeah.
Did he start in Pee Wee? Has he been playing since he was a child? And probably has had thousands of hits to the head, right? Okay, so
I actually read an article that said he started playing at the age of 7. He was introduced to the sport at the age of 7, so he played for a long time.
Yeah, very, very long time. And I'll also say, like, some other things. He was, and I don't remember the article where I read this, but he was doing things that people couldn't explain why. So he was creating a garden, and he was very excited about this garden that he was creating, but the garden was not producing anything. Nothing was growing. Everything was just dead, but he would be out there for hours, and it probably brought him some sense of calm and relief. But also, he just kept working at something that was not fruitful at all. Okay. All right. So, you know, we already know that Phillip Adams is no longer with us. We know that CTE was found in his brain. And so now we're going to learn a little bit about what led up to the moment of his death.
Yes. So the day that changed everything was April 7th of 2021. It happened in Rock Hill, South Carolina. And that afternoon, authorities received reports of gunfire at the home of Dr. Robert Leslie, who was a well-known physician in the Rock Hill community. And inside that home was Dr. Leslie, his wife, Barbara, and their 2 young grandchildren. 2 HVAC technicians were also there doing routine work at the home. So on April 7th, Phillip Adams went to that home and he opened fire. So all 6 people were killed. A 7th was critically injured, and 911 calls captured people screaming that they had been shot, a neighbor describing hearing nearly 20 gunshots. And then hours later, the law enforcement team was able to trace the suspect back to Phillip Adams. They surrounded his home. They tried to get in to get him to come outside, only to find that he had sustained a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. And so on that day, he died.
Yeah, and even that story almost sounded like something you would see on like Criminal Minds or one of those TV shows. It was just so hard to believe. Can you tell us how old the grandchildren were?
They were 9 and 5, young.
So very small children, right? Yeah. And I think one of the reasons that people were so baffled and like couldn't understand was there was not really anything provoking. They tried to find out if there were connections between him and Dr. Leslie, but they really couldn't find anything. But that day, so people saw him driving in this golf cart. And the way that their house was, you had to like kind of go down this road, but then you went up this really big yard. And so that's where the 2 HVAC guys were. And he shot them first. They didn't know what was coming, right? He did have these guns, but it wasn't that unnatural to see somebody riding around with guns because it's South Carolina. It might have been hunting season. I don't know when hunting season happens. So that might be something we can look up and see. But he actually went into the home, and the family was pretty much cornered in this room. And we don't know what the conversations were. We don't know what happened. But then he just went home and went in his room. He went home and went in his room and was just in there. And so when they got to his house, his parents were there. They didn't know what had happened, but then their home was surrounded. So they come outside. They had the dad down, handcuffed, because they don't know what happened, who's all involved and everything. And then that's when you talk about they tried to get him to come outside and he had taken his own life. And then I had also mentioned to y'all earlier that they had found a journal he had, and it had writings and drawings that they couldn't decipher, and they thought that maybe he was in some sort of cult. But it might have just been the fact that he was dealing with some pretty severe mental health challenges, because if he has the stage of CTE where paranoia comes into play, right, there's other things happening. There's a lot going on here, right? And so they haven't really been, they never really got any real answers. We just know that it was a very tragic event. We know that, well, I guess I won't say we know that, but we just know that there was something going on, right? And this is important because a lot of times when they talk about CTE, it gets lumped into mental health.
Yes.
Which mental health is absolutely a factor, right? Because when there's changes in the chemical neurotransmitters and the balance of those in the brain, we know that mental health challenges can occur. But when there's also brain injury on top of that, what does that look like? And how significant can those changes be? I'll ask y'all a couple of questions, and whoever wants to answer can answer them. When you hear his story, when you hear this story that has happened, first, what some of y'all talked a little bit about some of the changes noticed by family and others. What things, as a speech language pathologist, that y'all are about to be official for, right? As a speech language pathologist, when if you were like visiting a friend and they were describing this person to you, right? What would be going through your mind? What would you be thinking?
Okay, so well, if I didn't know his age, I would have asked his age.
Mm-hmm.
I would want to know a bit about his past. I would want to know if he's working, where he lives, who he finds himself around most of the time. That would give me an idea of the history behind what happened. I would also want to know if he has any previous history of mental illness, because the story sounds absurd, but knowing something like that would make you understand where the whole thing was coming from. So that is what I would want to know.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Anyone else? What would you be thinking if you were chatting with a friend and they're telling you, yeah, Phillip, he's been acting like this. This is what I've been noticing.
I think with our background, there's some things that you hear that you kind of automatically start thinking, well, that kind of falls underneath these things. So like the fact that he was having difficulty with memory, difficulty with his temper escalating, difficulty with they even said personal hygiene was an issue, planning, organization. I think with the SLP lens, you kind of think, okay, these are all kind of falling under some executive functioning skills. So something maybe we should take a deeper look into that. I think that's what I would be thinking. I was like, if it's starting to follow a pattern or fit into a certain mold, then it's something to look deeper into from that perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, if I would be hearing all those things at once, I would probably ask if they have already like started getting some type of help, because I feel like that could also kind of help gauge, where they are in the process. Because they were saying that he was telling people like, I don't feel right. I'm not, and people noticed that he wasn't behaving typically. So
Mm-hmm.
I think I would want to know, like, okay, has he gone to the doctor? Has he gone to a neurologist? Has he done any of these things? And then going from there, right? Because I think also I would kind of be thinking like he's probably not going to know that a speech pathologist could help him, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Professionals may not know that a speech pathologist can help, right? So I would be thinking just where he is in the intervention process, just at any part, like at any stage. But if I'm hearing memory issues, and then you take into consideration his age, he was like in his late 20s, early 30s. That's not. So I'd immediately think, okay, has he seen a neurologist? If not, he needs to see a neurologist. And then once he gets the verdict from that, definitely going to see a speech pathologist. Because if you're not taking care of yourself and you're so young, and you're kind of already showing signs of dementia or just not being able to take care of yourself, and there's nothing has like happened to you that's like debilitating, or you don't have any like medical diagnosis, and you just having these issues, I would definitely think that there's something that needs to be like he just needs more help, basically.
Yeah, so I think all three of you bring up really good points, right? So let's recap again. What were the cognitive communicative symptoms that you picked up from hearing this story?
Memory deficits, executive functioning deficits,
Aggression.
and attention. Yeah, I think he had some problem with attention, especially with the gardening.
Impulsivity, difficulty with emotional regulation.
Yeah. And out of executive functions, there was something very specific that they said he had a hard time doing.
Was it plan?
It was related to organizing, because he did know that that he needed some help.
Yeah.
But because he had a hard time with remembering, and then he had a hard time with organizing enough to be able to make appointments and then attend those appointments. Very common, right? We know that that's a common thing because it happens even in our own clinic, right? We have a TBI client.
Yeah.
We already know we got to send an email and say, hey, we look forward to seeing you tomorrow, because they may or may not show up.
Yeah.
Right? We have to send some reminders. And then y'all mentioned some psychosocial and behavioral challenges, right? And this is where a lot of the overlap between cognitive communication and mental health comes into play, right? This is why sometimes it's hard to tell that there's brain injury involved, because sometimes those psychosocial behavioral symptoms overshadow everything else. And what were some of those behavioral change? Well, y'all mentioned them already, right? The aggression, impulsivity. And think about that in terms of the decision that he made even that day. When you think about those types of challenges, right, in connection with executive functions, if he was experiencing impulsivity, it doesn't even actually sound like he was temperamental or super aggressive. Unless maybe he was in that moment that we don't know what was going on in that room. But if there's impulsivity and things like that, how much problem solving was he doing that day?
None. He might have not even thought twice about it because he was impulsive. So I think for him, it was probably like, okay, this is what I'm going to do right now. And he did it. And I think that he might have not realized until he was in that room the gravity of what was happening. Because it just seems like he wasn't even present, even in the what happened in the situation.
And because he's no longer with us, we don't know what potentially that trigger could have been for him to, decide to grab the guns, get in the golf cart and go, that maybe it was something that he seen, heard, but something that triggered that impulsivity, that aggression that caused him to do what he did.
I'll piggyback on what Victoria just said. I think the whole thing, whatever happened, was an impulsive behavior. Probably got home and then he realized what he had done, thought about it and realized he had messed up. And that is why he probably shot himself. So I think all this was just, like you said, being impulsive.
Yeah. If you had had an opportunity to meet him and he came into your clinic, what would be the first referral you would make?
Psychologist.
Say that again.
A psychologist.
And why would we want to do that first?
Because he's having these extreme emotional ups and downs, and even his history with the NFL and the relationship that he has with football. I think when people start to equate their value to how they can perform and things they can do, that's definitely a problem, because as we've seen, once he lost it, he didn't really know where to go. He didn't have a sense of direction. And because in life, things are going to go wrong. Things don't always go wrong. But when you have somebody who feels as though things are always going wrong just to them, and that nothing they do is right, it's harder for them to even see the little positive strides. So I think to talk about how he's feeling, but also possibly foster a good relationship with therapy as well, because we don't want him to go into therapy thinking, oh, well, because I didn't get 10 out of 10 or 8 out of 10. I didn't reach the goal for today. I'm worthless. I'm not doing what I should be doing, or just contributing to those disposable feelings. So we want to make sure that somebody's consistently checking on him and he has an outlet to express himself.
Yeah, I think you bring up something really important, and we talk about this in class as well. If your client has mental health challenges, speech language therapy, cognitive intervention is very likely not going to be very effective unless they are co-treating. Either they need to get stabilized in some form of fashion, or co-treating needs to happen where they're experiencing both at the same time, because the strategies can overlap. It's like you said, if they're mentally unstable and that impulsivity is coming into play, the aggression, and that's something we don't always talk a lot about too as speech language pathologists. Those who have been in my clinic, what's the first thing I tell you about even just setting up the room? What do I tell you?
Put your chair next to the door.
Sit next to the door, right? Yeah. You don't put yourself in the corner, because even the kindest person, if there's a trigger that happens and you're stuck in the corner and they're at the door, it could go bad, right? Those are things that we don't always talk about, but they are things that we need to think about. There are facilities where they do trainings on restraint and how to effectively and safely do restraints, because sometimes it's necessary with the populations that we work with. So another speech language pathology question. Knowing the cognitive communicative symptoms, let's say he came into your clinic and you made the referrals, he's seeing the psychologist or the psychiatrist, he is doing pretty well. What would be some areas Well, actually, let me ask you this. We already talked about the areas, but what types of things do you think you would want to do in therapy with him?
I think definitely some memory strategies because it's going to be very important for him to have some external memory aids or something helping him to even remember our appointments together or his appointments with the psychiatrist or whatever else he has going on. Because I do believe he tried to pursue other ventures post NFL and everything just fell through, which I'm sure likely had to do with forgetting appointments or, forgetting that there was a task that he had to complete at a certain time. So definitely some functional memory aids or memory strategies to help him with.
What else? What might y'all want to do with him?
I will also target executive functioning, basically because it showed that he had problems with problem solving. He demonstrated problems with organization. So I feel those two are basic things that at his age he needs to be able to have an idea about. So I would target that in addition to the memory strategies.
I think those are good. Anything else?
I'm really big on compensatory strategies and everything. Like he said, using external memory aids, like just even using your, like, because we're in the digital age now. So even using your phone, setting reminders, showing him how to do that. So it's like, even if, it slips your mind, there's going to be something that's going to tell you, oh, at 12 o'clock or at 6 o'clock, you have to do this. And if he were to have the opportunity to learn how to do those things, I think it would help him to feel less defeated as well, because it's like, okay, I have this compensatory strategy that's actually helping me. And I just think all of that would contribute to positive feelings about himself too, right? Because if he's noticing that immediate, like, oh, okay, this is working, this is helping me, I think that it would help him I think he would have had a more positive outlook and would have been able to see like, okay, this can get better for me.
Yeah. And even thinking about his therapy, if somebody's having that much of a hard time scheduling getting there, right, he might benefit more from home therapy. Someone actually coming to the house and working with him, right? That might be a better way. And home therapy is always really good because it's in your environment, right? The therapist could go in the back with him in the garden and map out, research effective ways to make your tomatoes grow or whatever it was he was trying to produce, right? And so looking at how you can make things functional. So really thinking about functionality, life participation, quality of life for a patient. Okay. And then let me ask you this. So this doesn't have to be directly related to Phillip Adams, but just when we think about, because we've been talking about Black athletes and concussion and the risk for CTE and also mental health. And then that identifying the difference between what are mental health challenges and what's cognitive communication. What are the risks of mislabeling neurological symptoms as behavior problems in particular for Black athletes? Think about all the things we've talked about the past 2 years. What happens when they get labeled just as having behavioral issues as opposed to being identified with neurological symptoms?
So, a situation like that, I'm not really zoning down on what Phillip had, but imagine a young man with mental problems but has been labeled as having behavioral problems. How would he feel? He would actually begin to think he has a problem and will end up behaving as if he has a problem. I hope you get what I'm trying to say. one is going to dampen his spirit. Two, he's not going to be able to achieve what he wants to achieve or his goals. Three, people around him will also be affected, especially immediate family, will also tend to believe there's something actually really wrong with him and will not be able to get him the kind of help he needs. So they end up doing or doing things that you're not supposed to do. So I think it's best to get professional help to be able to determine if this is actually a mental problem or just people
Neurological.
enough. Yeah.
Yeah. So and you're thinking about the environment around him and pretty much like the power of words, right?
Exactly.
If everyone keeps saying, oh, he's just crazy, they're just crazy, right?
Yeah.
Which is such a horrible word to use. Then they think, because also people who have repeated concussion, they don't always know that is what is
The
the
problem.
issue.
Yeah.
Very good.
I think too, when you hear behavioral problem, you think, oh, they're choosing to act out. They're choosing to do these behaviors and not change or not listen. And in the end, they end up getting punished or dismissed for their behavior, as opposed to when you say it's a neurological symptom of so-and-so, then that automatically means, okay, this is something that needs to be addressed, something that needs to be treated, as opposed to just saying, oh, it's just their behavior.
Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely think the biggest issue with the lines kind of being blurred between the two, it just leads to the continued, like, I want to say misinformation about what's actually happening. And I think that as long as we continue to be like, oh, this is just mental health, we're never going to really get down to the root of the issue. And we're not going to be able to actually help people because we're continuing to write it off as if it's, oh, this is just something that they're going through. They're just depressed. They're just, dealing with emotions of life. And that can very much, two things could be true at once. But I think that when we start to see, though, like you said, executive functioning, attention, and memory, that's not behavioral. That's not something that you can control. Even, yeah, like I think that the continued lack of, or just continue just trying to clarify it as mental health opposed to looking at the bigger picture, it's going to continue to hinder Black athletes in getting the help they need. Because there's already stigmas around getting mental health help, right? In the Black community. We don't want to talk to a therapist, especially men. Men are like, yeah, no, I'm good. I'm fine. So we have to kind of break down. I think if it's shaped as a neurological condition and a medical diagnosis, I think that it'll change. The ideas surrounding it will change.
Yeah. Now I'll put it a little more specific. For an adult Black male who is experiencing, and everything y'all said is leading up to what I'm asking you, because I just want you to get a little bit more specific, because you're absolutely right. An adult Black male, let's say 25 years old, has been playing sports, repeated head injuries over and over, undiagnosed, untreated, exhibiting some of these symptoms that we've talked about today: aggression, impulsivity, memory issues, disorganization, all those things. What are the risks for this Black man or Black woman? What are the risks for them socially?
Oh, well, socially, I mean, when a Black man or a Black person, period, is aggressive, it can honestly lead to death, if we're being frank. So I think socially it can cause for kind of, in a sense, like isolation, right? Because everyone's going to characterize you as this, it already plays into certain narratives. And if you actually have a problem, nobody's looking at what's actually like your problem. They're looking at, oh, this is just another angry Black man or another angry Black woman. So I think socially, it can be isolating, and it can honestly put that person in danger.
Mm-hmm. In danger in what way?
Danger in a way of, like, specifically,
Mm-hmm.
I think it can lead to negative interactions with law enforcement.
Yeah, that's where I was going. Definitely. Law enforcement. I think people are quicker to call the police on Black people. So any little instance, say you were to flip out, they're gonna definitely call them on you, and you don't have that impulse control, right? That impulse control center is damaged. So you're not gonna be thinking, I might need to change my tone because this could go left. You be in that state of aggression, and you might stay there. And I think with law enforcement and other people on the opposing side, they always want to neutralize, right? Neutralize the situation, neutralize the person. And when somebody cannot mentally or doesn't have the capacity to control themselves in that way, it just is a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. I think it kind of goes into what I was saying earlier about, like, when people view things as just a behavior, you get punished or dismissed or even treated more haphazardly than it would if, oh, this is a symptom of an illness. I think it kind of goes into why people were advocating so much for additional trainings within law enforcement to be able to recognize signs of things like autism or other cognitive things going on, so that they don't just assume that a person is acting a way because it's law enforcement, as opposed to acting a certain way because that's just how their brain is working. They're not understanding the situation that's going on or how to best respond or navigate it, you know?
Yeah.
Also, unfortunately, if it's a Black person, instead of getting help for that person will be labeled. And if the person is labeled, it tarnishes the person's image, let's say forever. Finding a job is going to be difficult. Making friends is going to be difficult. Climbing up the ladder in wherever situation or wherever environment you find yourself in is going to be difficult. And that can thereby lead to depression and then more exacerbation of the symptoms that the patient or the person is already having. And then, like Victoria said, depressive episodes, the person can just commit suicide. Yeah. So it's a ripple effect.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. And then, we've been talking a lot about adults, but they have found CTE in brains as young as 18. Right? So, same scenario, but our children.
Right.
How does this show up for our children when they're mislabeled?
Right.
Our little Black boys and girls, right? They get sent to the principal's office, they get expelled, they get detention, thus leading them into another direction that we call the school to confinement pipeline, right? And even sometimes just in neighborhoods, they could be playing at the playground and have a moment, can't control the emotions and behaviors, and it turns into something else. So there is a huge risk when we don't understand the difference. And it's not an easy thing to do, but I think getting people to think about asking those questions more, remember we talked about children, they could have experienced their concussion in the first grade, but the symptoms still show up later, 2 years later, or a year and a half later, right? But sometimes we don't ask those questions. We only see the behaviors that are in front of us, and we don't think about the fact that they could have had brain injury happen. Okay. All right. This is a good discussion. Difficult story to tell. But I do want to ask you all something that you weren't prepared for. Okay. But it has to do with your own experience. Okay. Because you all have been with me now for 2 years. You've been with me for 2 years. I think, Tiffany, you came in the lab a little bit later, but you've been in my classes, right? And you know what my passion is. You know, I'm going to talk about these Black athletes. I'm going to talk about the health disparities. I'm going to talk about the biases, all the things. And because you are on your way out into the real world, what I want to know from you, future graduates or graduating in just a little bit, is what do you feel like you gain the most in terms of these types of topics? And what will you take with you as you leave? Specifically from the concussion aspect and
one thing I've learned in this field is never to judge a book by its cover. Actually, if you see someone with behavioral problems or doing something that is not typical or behaving in a way that is not typical, you have to think further or probe further. You don't just jump to conclusions. I've come across many patients or many clients that some even feel, look calm and look well presented, but then end up having real problems. So one thing I've learned is never to judge a book by its cover. Yeah.
I think that's a beautiful proverb.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's a good one. It helps you stay unbiased.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
For me, I would definitely say that I feel like with traumatic brain injury, for me, it kind of feels like a phenomenon in a sense, right? Because I think that so many people are impacted by traumatic brain injury and they don't even know it, right? So many people have sustained concussions, multiple concussions, and have no idea that that even has been a part of their life. And they don't know how to go about, oh, I'm forgetting things, or I'm not able to pay attention to things, or I'm not able to plan out my day, right? And they don't know who to go to. So I feel like I've learned that like speech pathology is really not viewed in that scope. And I think that that's problematic. But I think that the more we integrate ourselves into it, I think we can have more of an impact. What I'm taking away from being in this independent study is I just know where I want to go and where I want to treat and who I want to treat. So when it comes to Black athletes, I always want to go as far as I can, but we have to start at the basics, right? In high school, because I just knowing that behavior can be like mislooked at or misidentified when it's really a neurological condition. It's so thought provoking, and it causes you to think like how many more people or how many more students are not being characterized the way they should be, right? Or looked at as they're just behaving poorly when they really cannot control what's happening to them. So
Thank you. You know, you also made me think about something that we didn't mention that much, but when you said so many people are affected by it, it's not just the person with the injury, the families. We didn't talk that much about Philip's family, but I'm pretty sure his parents were trying to figure out how to best help him, how to understand him, and not really thinking about, oh, it could have been injuries. And maybe those things maybe started to cross their mind, but a lot of times family members don't know.
Yeah.
They just see that their loved one is changing and they don't know what to do about it. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Tiff?
I think a couple of things, kind of what we were talking about earlier about, I think Victoria just touched on it too, the mislabeling and misrepresenting. I think that's something of behavioral problems for neurological symptoms. I think that's something that's ingrained in my head now whenever I see, whether it be pediatrics or adults, that there's a behavioral issue, always digging deeper, always saying, wait a second, why are we just saying this kid is hard to work with? This kid never listens, never comes in on time, never, you know, all those things. So there may be something cognitively going on. So I think that's something that's gonna stay with me, and making sure that in my verbiage as an SLP, I'm not, especially with minorities, perpetuating those same stereotypes, that same negative connotation, all those things. And then education and access, I think, is very important too, so that people know who to reach out to, in addition to a neurologist, a psychiatrist, SLPs. Hey, we're here, we can help. So I think making sure that people know where to get that care.
We are now at the last part of the show, where we get to talk a little bit about music. We've had some heavy, and this still, you might feel a little heavy in this moment, but we'll end it on a lighter note. But I always love to talk about music. I've named the show Life, Language, and Lyrics because I wanted to put connections to music in some kind of way, because I feel like music is the soundtrack to our lives, right? We always have our songs playing in the background to either help our mood, help us calm down, help hype us up, help us stay in a funky mood. Sometimes you just never know, right? And so I'll ask these questions. Whoever wants to go first can. If you have a song, you give it. If you don't, it's okay. Okay? All right. So first, this one is not really with a song, but let's say if this case that we just talked about with Phillip Adams had a soundtrack, what do you think the themes would be? What do you think the theme of this soundtrack would be?
I think being misunderstood.
Misunderstood. Mm-hmm. Anything else?
Hmm.
And it doesn't just have to be from his perspective. It can be from others involved.
Oh, grief, then, definitely.
Grief. Mm-hmm. Any other thoughts? Misunderstood, grief, maybe some anger, confusion. Okay. It might be a very sad soundtrack.
Yeah.
Okay.
Feeling
All right.
isolated.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So if I asked you of a song that reflects how this topic made you feel, what would be the song?
There's a song by Logic. I think it's a suicide hotline number. And for me, just when I think about the lyrics of, like, I feel like I'm losing my mind, like you don't understand why these things are happening to you, you just want it to be over with. I 100% see the alignment of that theme, especially with how Phillip Adams' story ended, and just those consistent feelings of like being misunderstood and like not even really knowing where to start on how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Any other thought?
So if I was Phillip going through this kind of trauma, I'll probably think of Stronger by Kanye West, pushing through and being resilient in everything to be able to come out victorious. That's the only song that comes to mind at this moment, at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a song you would have shared with him to provide him with hope.
Yes.
Okay. I like that. I like that. He can be stronger. Anyone else have a song that they would have shared with him to provide hope or encouragement?
Maybe Rise Up by Andra, is that how you say Andra
Andra
Day?
Day. Yeah.
Andra
Andra Day.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I feel like that's a really empowering, encouraging song.
Mm-hmm.
I can't
Yeah.
imagine someone like Philip listening to Rise Up.
Right. Right. Because I'm trying to think of like an artist at that time. Uh,
Well, it depends. Are you thinking about the song that reflects how the topic made you feel, or a song you would share with him to provide him with hope or encouragement?
I think with a song with hope and encouragement that I feel like would be like appropriate for him because he's a guy.
Yeah.
Um,
Rise Up sounds so.
yeah, you know.
Imagine
But
Philip
Common is
in
on
front
that
of
song,
you.
right? Isn't Common on that song?
Yeah, but still.
It was mentioned, that song came up in the first year's episode too. So you're not alone, Tiffany.
Um, I would say it would either have to be like a Boss Man D-Lo song or like Lil Baby. And here's why. Here's why.
Okay.
Lil Baby, I feel
We
like
with you.
his old music is just like he's just rapping about like getting it, making it, having money, like positivity. Like he doesn't really it's like positivity, but it's like male positivity. Because I feel like men are driven by different things, right?
Mhm.
So I feel like his music is like very like motivating and will really push him.
Hmm.
Who's the other person I said? Lil Baby. And I think that's really it right now.
Another song just came to mind, one by Eminem. I've forgotten the name, the title of the song, but it goes like, I'm not afraid.
Oh yeah, that would be good.
Man.
Mm.
I
Mm-hmm.
think it's something that it would work with him. I mean, yeah.
Okay. All right, I'm with it. I'm with it. What do you listen to when you need to find peace after that heavy conversation like this?
Mm, it has to be bounce music.
Bounce music.
You can't listen to nothing sad. You can't listen to nothing slow after, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, strangely enough, I like jazz. Anything with a saxophone in it will calm me down instantly.
Mm.
I
Okay.
don't know, but yeah, it
So
works
was
for me all the time.
okay. All right. All right. What you got, Tiffany?
I would say lo-fi for me personally. I've been really into lo-fi when I just need to woosah.
Okay. All right. So y'all all went a little instrumental. I mean,
Mhm.
bounce will have some words.
Yeah.
There will be some words. But you're thinking more of the beats of the music that may cause change in how your body is reacting. You either want to come up or you want to bring your system to a
Down.
place of calm,
Mhm.
right? Okay. All right. Last thing I'll ask you, if you have one, it could be an affirmation, a quote, or a scripture that you would like to share, or something that you say to yourself that encourages you or brings you peace.
Well, I usually recite Psalm 93. It's a very common one, but those words mean so much. Like it covers all aspects of life.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever I'm down or I'm confused or don't know what to do,
Mm-hmm.
I just recite it, and it's like it covers every aspect. From the first verse to the last verse,
Mm-hmm.
every aspect of my life, asking God to take control over everything, from
Mm.
friend to personal to family. Psalm 93 is my go-to
Okay.
verse. Yeah.
Psalm 93. That's a good one.
For me, it's always heavy is the head that wears the crown. I feel
Mm.
like You know, it's so easy to get caught up in, oh my God, there's so much going on. It's a lot, like everything. Like it's so easy to get, I feel like it's easier to be negative than it is to be positive. But I think for me, I have to remind myself, like, if God did not see me fit for this, I wouldn't be here. And,
Mm.
you know, your crown may tilt, but, you know, you just got to push it back up and keep going.
You know what that makes me think about? I have this niece, and she's so just very entertaining, very funny. I call her KDR. That's her initials, but that's her rap name. Right. Not a rapper. But she has this photo that she had posted. This is when she was really young, but it's like her in this picture like this. And then she put like a cartoon crown, but it's tilted. And then she put like my crown may tilt, but it will never fall.
Yes.
That's a good one.
That's cute.
Hey, Tiff, you got something for us?
Yeah, I always like to reflect back to I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And then that the Lord will never give us too much that we can't bear. So those are my two.
Okay. Those are beautiful. Those are great phrases to leave us with. Well, ladies, you have done a wonderful job this evening. I appreciate the care that you put into the story that you told, because it is a tough story to retell, because it's hard for a lot of people, right? You also shared some really great information. You have provided some awareness. You have told people what speech language pathologists do, what we can do in the area of concussion and CTE and all the things. So kudos to you. I'm honored to have had you join me. Okay. All right. So one suggestion I will make is to listen to the music that you said put you in a peaceful space before you go to sleep. Don't go to sleep just directly after this conversation without doing something for yourself. Okay. And until next time, we'll see y'all later.
See you later.
See ya.
Thank you.
Yeah.